Today, our subject is the Deus Ex Machina. Let's examine the common types and tropes associated with this plot device and explore ways screenwriters can avoid this trap. This is What is Deus Ex Machina? The hero is trapped, facing certain death, with no possible way to win. Until something or someone intervenes at the last possible minute. A Deus Ex Machina is when a seemingly unsolvable problem is conveniently and unrealistically resolved. And most writers agree that plot devices like this should be avoided at all costs.
Oh, great one. Oh, supreme being.
But is the Deus Ex Machina really so bad?
Well, let's find out then, shall we?
Also, fair warning, we will be spoiling the following movies. Deus Ex Machina is a Latin phrase that translates directly as God from the machine. And it originated in ancient Greek theatre. In these plays, the God from the machine was quite literal. Tragedies were frequently resolved by a god swooping in to save the day. The actors playing gods were often lowered onto the stage by cranes, hence God from the machine. This type of resolution quickly became a get-out-of-jail-free card for writers to conveniently get their characters past insurmountable odds.
I'm a writer.
Even Aristotle criticized this plot device, saying, "It is obvious that the solutions of plots should come about as a result of the plot itself, and not from a contrivance." Over time, the Deus Ex Machina plot device has taken on a more figurative meaning. Rather than a literal god resolving the plot,
It's a very relieved deity.
the modern definition of Deus Ex Machina refers to cheap, lazy, or overly convenient writing that often gets the protagonist out of a jam at the last second. Here's what screenwriting guru Robert McKee has to say on the subject.
Every day, somewhere in the world, somebody sacrifices his life to save somebody else. If you can't find that stuff in life, then you, my friend, don't know crap about life. And why the are you wasting my 2 precious hours with your movie?
Okay, thanks.
There have been arguments about what is really the use of coincidence to get an ending as opposed to Deus Ex Machina. In a classically told story, ultimately achieves its meaning because the protagonist of the story with whom the audience is empathizing ultimately has to choose and act in life in order to decide their fate, their climax, one way or the other.
Would you take your hands off of my wife, please?
Taking the crisis climax out of the protagonist's hands by randomness renders the climax meaningless.
Come on! That hurts! What? Rain fire!
While there is some disagreement over what exactly constitutes a Deus Ex Machina, there are common characteristics we can point to. Now, let's look at some classic Deus Ex Machina moments in movies, and we'll discuss possible solutions to these issues. The most common Deus Ex Machina examples fall into at least one of 4 types. Let's start with movies that inexplicably change the rules of the game. No matter how far removed from our own reality, a story must have consistent internal logic.
I figured it out.
That means once the rules of that world are established, they shouldn't be broken.
Time travel.
What?
Otherwise, the resolution feels like a cheat. For example, we are told that the rules inside the Matrix are different from those in the real world.
It has the same basic rules like gravity. What you must learn is that these rules are no different than the rules of a computer system. Some of them can be bent. Others can be broken.
So, when Neo is able to do this, it breaks the movie's internal logic. Even for these characters that have supernatural abilities, pushing this too far runs the risk of alienating the audience. Which leads to the next common characteristic of the Deus Ex Machina. When a payoff lacks a good setup,
Extra life.
it can become a Deus Ex Machina. For example, water becomes the savior against the Wicked Witch.
You cursed brat! Look what you've done! I'm melting! Melting!
But neither Dorothy nor the audience knows that. Similarly, bacteria proves to be the downfall of the aliens in War of the Worlds. In any other film, the characters would have discovered this fact and used this knowledge against the invaders.
What happened here? I don't know. Something's happening to him. Please, keep moving.
And in both cases, the characters have no idea how to win. So these victories come down to simple luck and nothing more. The end result goes back to McKee's point in that these endings are left without meaning. Dorothy didn't really triumph over the Wicked Witch. She got lucky, which is not really a satisfying victory.
She did. You killed her.
I didn't mean to kill her.
Next up, resolutions that only happen with some last-minute assistance.
On your left.
Sometimes the protagonist needs a little help to get the job done. And in comes the cavalry to save the day.
Avengers!
Assemble.
This isn't always a problem, but there are some aspects you'll want to avoid. If the cavalry seems to come out of nowhere, if their timing is overly convenient,
Folks.
or if they solve the problem for the protagonists rather than with them, if your protagonist needs the cavalry to get them out of a jam, sacrifice and loss can soften a Deus Ex Machina.
Oh, giving up, General Jaja.
Coincidences might be true to life,
Hands up. Might give up.
but they often feel like cheats in storytelling,
Take this!
and they rarely make for a satisfying resolution. For random coincidences to work dramatically,
Oops.
that randomness must be linked to the film's thematic focus.
What's they doing?
In Slumdog Millionaire, coincidence is what the entire premise is about. Jamal is able to answer each question correctly
He is famously holding what in his right hand?
because of his unique and tragic life experiences. It's a redemptive story where destiny is the focus, not reality.
Bow and arrow.
You just won 16,000 rupees. Well done, my friend.
Now that we've covered the most common Deus Ex Machina examples in movies, here are some tips on how to make them work for you instead of against you.
I should leave here right now. I'll start over. I need to face this project head on.
And God help you if you use voiceover in your work, my friends. God help you.
First, admit to the audience that it is a Deus Ex Machina. Adaptation gets away with this in the climax, because the film is self-aware and perfectly sets up the inevitable Deus Ex Machina.
Find an ending, but don't cheat. And don't you dare bring in a Deus Ex Machina.
But being self-aware is no guarantee that audiences will understand or appreciate it. In The Matrix Revolutions, Neo bargains with an all-powerful machine to help him battle Agent Smith one last time.
The program Smith has grown beyond your control.
Even though this literal God from the machine is named Deus Ex Machina in the script, for some people this is too much to accept.
It's the legendary Black Beast of Arnor!
Second, know your genre. Depending on the genre and tone, a Deus Ex Machina might actually work. Comedies can bend the rules much more than dramas, and the audience will be much more forgiving for these transgressions.
Escape for Arthur and his knights seemed hopeless, when suddenly the animator suffered a fatal heart attack. The cartoon peril was no more.
In Monty Python and the Holy Grail, the police raid at the end broke all the rules and became the perfect resolution for their brand of silliness.
Yes, they're the ones, I'm sure.
Come on. Just play better.
As Robert McKee pointed out, the most important thing is to keep the protagonist actively involved in the climactic resolution. The solution can be random. Tiger! It can be convenient.
My friend wants a Devo! My friend gets a Devo!
And the hero can even receive last-minute assistance. But if they are not the ones to make the final, critical decision in how the story resolves, the ending is meaningless. So, avoid the Deus Ex Machina whenever possible. But if you absolutely must include this maligned plot device, take every opportunity to soften the blow.
Don't you know the rules?
What rules?
Plant a great setup.
There are certain rules that one must abide by in order to successfully survive a horror movie.
Maintain the story's internal logic. And make sure the resolution helps your protagonist fulfill their character arc.
This is the moment when the supposedly dead killer comes back to life for one last scare.
Not in my movie.
Use Studio Binder's screenwriting software to write your next godless script. Until next time, remember that the only truly excellent Ex Machina is the one where Oscar tears up the dance floor.